Welcome to Gracefully Graying Livestream. Gracefully Graying is a startup to connect you to resources and information about growing older and for assisting your loved ones. We provide articles, interviews, checklists, and other tips to create a productive and vibrant life. We also have many resources for people moving into later life stages and how they can be helped by those around them. You can find us on gracefullygraying.com and social media platforms. So now enjoy the live stream Gracefully Graying show. Hello, everyone. I am Lori Bloom. Welcome to Gracefully Graying live stream. And today we are welcoming Ellen Craine, who is from Craine Consulting and Counseling. She's a therapist, a social work, ethics, and business coach consultant, and an educator, author, and integrative wellness health coach, specializing in navigating social work ethical dilemmas. So that's a mouthful, Ellen. Welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thank you. Yes, it is a mouthful, Lori. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you have many titles and many roles, I see.
That is true.
Yeah. So today, as I mentioned, actually I didn't mention, but we are going to be talking about social work ethics with family caregivers of older adults. So specifically family members who are taking care of older adults that their loved ones, they're related to, whatever the case may be. So with that, Ellen, just give us a brief background, your background and how you got into social work ethics and all of this.
Yeah, so I've been in the social work field for well over 25 years. And during that time, one of the things that I did was serve on the ethics committee for 13 years for the Michigan chapter of the National Association of Social Workers. And
that's a mouthful.
Yeah. That's a mouthful, right? Yeah. And I developed a real passion around ethics. And through the years, I found that social workers are very intuitive with knowing how to resolve dilemmas usually, but what they don't always know is the backbone, like what to say to support, where to go to look for that support to back them up in the dilemma that they're dealing with. And so one of the things that I did was I developed a model, which is 5 pillars for navigating the social work ethics dilemma. And looking at the NASW, which is the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, is one of those pillars, which we're actually going to focus on today. So that's the ethics component. And what I have found then is whenever I go out and I do public speaking, people are always coming to me and asking me ethics questions. And I said, well, shoot, I might as well do this, right?
Sure.
And so in between, I've done divorce and family mediation. I'm also have a certificate as an elder care mediator. So where I could do mediation or family counseling, coaching around these elder care issues that we're talking about. And most recently, I am very, very proud to say that I'm now an associate producer of a documentary that aired on PBS in Los Angeles last year.
Great.
And it's called Authentic Conversations, Deep Talk with the Masters. And it features my mentors, Jack Canfield, Kate Butler, and Patty Aubrey. And it's directed by Emmy-nominated producer, Dr. Angela Sadler-Williamson. And what we found is that since the pandemic, Americans' emotional well-being is at a 21-year low. And Dr. Angela's mission is to produce documentaries that inspire change, which we're working on today with today's conversation as well, and to give people hope and to empower them. And I'm featured in this documentary. Part of the reason that I'm featured is because I co-authored a book that is published by Kate Butler through her Impact book series called Women Who Empower. Again, all about this idea of empowerment. And everyone who's watched this documentary has felt encouraged and motivated. And the documentary is available on on a PBS national website, an app, and it's available on Facebook as well. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's quite an
Thank you.
accomplishment.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. And since we're talking about authentic conversations, why
Yeah.
not, plug this documentary?
Plug
It's
it.
been a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
That's important for a lot of people to see, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know we had that information at the bottom of the screen scrolling, so people could find that, and also links that we'll post after.
Thank you.
So tell us, Ellen, the importance of putting things in writing as a senior, as it's needed for seniors, especially those over 60 and above. What is your definition of a senior? Actually, we could start with that.
Yeah. So the all the information, especially when we're talking in the area of elder abuse, for example, they start to identify older adults as those 60 and older. But I would even say that you should start sooner. You could start sooner. I had a personal scenario where my husband was 44, ended up having a heart attack, needing open heart surgery. We had nothing in place. And so we had to scramble to get things in place. And then we had to update everything when he was 58 and ended up dying from a brain tumor about 6 years ago. So the idea is, in theory, before these things happen, right, we want to have these authentic conversations with our family members. What are our wishes if something happens? And we want to then put these things in writing. We want to do not resuscitate. We want to put in
financial information,
power of attorney information around finances. We want to do HIPAA documents. We want to do everything that we can. We want to spell out, how do we want our end of life? For example, my husband, decided through the course of his treatment, he was ready for hospice. And so he had, thank goodness, he was verbally able to communicate that with me, but not all family members are.
And then they're in a panic situation, which nobody wants to find themselves in, whether it's dealing with each other, family members, or dealing with the medical community, or whoever's involved. So that can get very complicated. The DNRs do not resuscitate. You talked about funeral wishes, finances, DNR. Explain to us really briefly what HIPAA is. I mean, I know everyone, they may not know what the acronym stands for. Go ahead and explain that.
Right. So that's the Health Information Portability Act, and it is at the federal level. And it's a document that you can complete with your attorney and have on file as part of your wills and trust planning. But it also doesn't take away from needing to do things like releases of information forms, signing HIPAA forms in doctor's offices, or if an older adult is seeing a mental health professional, so that family members that may be accompanying them, the professional who's working with the older adult and the family knows that it's okay to talk about whatever's going on medically or from a mental health perspective.
Right. And, when one visits a doctor's office, they always give you the HIPAA form to fill out.
Right.
I mean, they have to.
Right. And it's important that they do. And it's important that people are, open and honest and having conversations ahead of time about who is going to be listed on that HIPAA form.
Right. And that has to do with your, physical medicine docs, your mental health information. I mean, there's a whole slew of, just covers everything.
Right. And you need one for each place that you're going to be seeking treatment, right? So even if you're in the doctor's office today, but you're in the hospital tomorrow, you want to make sure that either your portable one from your wills and trust planning is with you, and you're filling that out at the hospital as well.
Right. Okay. So, today we're talking about, and we're going to have other conversations with you in the future. Today we're talking about family caregivers, as opposed to paid caregivers. So, that'll be a different conversation. but, unfortunately, I mean, this is just, it might be rampant, it may not be, I mean, depending on people's situations, but, taking advantage of seniors' financial status and their
Mhm.
finances, whether that's from within families or,
Mhm.
that can get really tricky quickly, right?
Right, right, right. So there's a fiduciary responsibility,
Yeah.
right? If you're going to be a caregiver of an older adult, whether it's a assigned caregiver role,
Mhm.
designated within the wills and trust of the older adult, or whether it's just a communicated within the family
Right.
assignment,
Right.
right?
Like so and so is kind of mom's caregiver because
Right,
maybe
right.
siblings live out of town or
Exactly.
mhm.
Right,
Okay.
right, right, right.
And obviously that would be somebody that's in a trusted role and, the under the best circumstances, the siblings and other family members have complete trust in this person who is taking care of the senior. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. And so then it's important to talk about, well, what is the definition of a family caregiver? Like
Mhm.
you've been saying, Lori, yes, it can be a spouse, but it could also be
Sibling.
like
I mean,
it could be a sibling. It could be
yeah,
a
could be a
sibling,
sibling.
absolutely. It could be a child. It
Right,
could be
right,
a domestic partner. It could be a close family friend,
right,
even who's in that role. The key is that it's not a hired professional,
right.
a hired caregiver that's being brought in for the
Mhm.
specific role, that
Right,
there's a strong connection, a strong perceived family connection, right?
right.
With the
And
older
then
adult.
there's the issue of confidentiality. I mean,
Mhm,
okay, so say I am a child taking care of an elderly parent.
mhm.
There's confidentiality between the child and the parent, but then how does that work, as far as communicating to siblings, for example, ethically?
Right. Well, so I think that um, I would frame confidentiality from a social work standpoint a little bit differently.
Mhm.
There may be confidentiality, and that the older adult may say, "Oh, don't tell your brother,
Right,
sister," but that's
right,
very different than confidentiality, if from a professional standpoint. So,
right.
and then that's when I come back to really working with families to have open, honest, authentic conversations
Mhm.
around these issues, so that we're not doing this confidentiality within families,
Mhm.
that the confidentiality is really honored as more from a professional standpoint, from
Right.
older adult family caregiver to the professionals that are involved, the doctors, the mental health professionals. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Right. For sure. And then talk about informed consent.
Yeah. So if I were seeing an older adult as my client in my office, I would be having them sign an informed consent that
Mhm.
incorporates things like privacy and confidentiality, so that if a family caregiver is participating in the section, I know that I have permission to talk openly and honestly
Right.
about things in front of that family caregiver and the older adult. And it might mean, even though an older adult signs something,
Mhm.
assuming that the mental capacity is there for them
Right.
to sign it. We're not talking about power of attorneys and other things that could sort of complicate that.
Right.
But this idea of revisiting it every time and rechecking in with that family care, that older adult, to
Mhm.
say, hey, are you okay with, this family caregiver hearing this information? Are you okay with me sharing this with them? Do you want to
Yeah.
share it with them? How do you want to share it with them? So informed consent and privacy confidentiality, kind of from a social work ethics standpoint, go hand in hand with each other.
Right. Okay. Okay. How about self-determination? Tell us what
Mhm.
that is.
Yeah. So self determination says that I, as the older adult, can determine my own outcome. So, for example, I can determine whether I want treatment, whether I don't want treatment.
Uh-huh.
It means that I can decide, unless there's extenuating circumstance around mental capacity, for example, I can decide who I want in the session with me, who I don't want in the session with me. I can decide if I'm going to follow a treatment plan or not follow a treatment plan, or what's going to be in that treatment plan.
Right.
So, right. And I have to, as the clinician, I need to honor, unless there's some reason, some safety reason, or some concern about mental capacity and the older adult's ability to really understand, I have to honor their wishes, even if I don't agree with them.
Right. That's got to be really hard sometimes, right?
Right.
I mean, if an older adult says, no, I don't want treatment, I'm not doing that. But the family member says, well, it's in your best interest, or you really need to do that. Like, how that could get really tricky.
Right. And the difficult thing is, that unless there is a determination that the older adult is incapacitated mentally, then I have to honor if the older adult is my client. Now, what I can do is offer family counseling, coaching, support to the family members, right? For how they could then carry on and work with their older adult family member.
Right. So you're working with both.
Right.
Pretty much.
In theory, I have that option, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to have the whole package.
Yeah.
But if I can't, and the older adult says, I just want to work with you, I don't want my other family members to be there, right? But then the other side of it is to be able to work with the family members as well.
Right. And so speaking of that, we're talking about the competence of, I want to say, the family social worker, which is the family member or good friend or whomever. The competence, like, what do you ever have that happen where, somebody feels like, well, I'm the best person to help, my senior loved one, but maybe they're really not? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I think, again, that's part of having that family conversation about, are these family children? And again, if the older adult is supporting the family caregiver, being the family caregiver, then needing to honor that. But then there's the competence of the social worker, which is different than the competence of the family member, right? Who's doing the caregiving. And, you're right. Not all family caregivers are competent. They don't have the experience. Maybe they've never worked with somebody who's, fallen and had a broken bone before, or who's got dementia, or whatever it is that the issue is that the older adult is struggling with, or it's just, day-to-day living. But then there's the competence of the social worker. So social workers should have training in working with older adults. They should have a certain level of experience as part of their training and working with the older adult. And a piece of that is understanding culture. So, because not every culture looks at how we care for our older adults the same way.
Right. That's a good point. So as a family, when you are seeking guidance from a social worker, you kind of have to do your homework and figure out who a good fit is.
Absolutely. Right. And I would check their credentials, do they have, like I have that certificate in elder mediation, but do I also have continuing education? Am I continuing to work on it? Do I have a certificate in gerontology social work, which is something that is available now? And so that's really important.
Right. Okay. So we talk about training and experience, and conflict of interest. How about access to records?
So access to records is another issue around confidentiality and privacy and informed consent. And then it has to do with who can have access to records and why would somebody want to have access to records. So one of the things is, for example, if an older adult dies, then the question becomes, do the family then have access to that person's records? And the answer really is no, unless there's extenuating circumstances as to why they might need to have access to those records. But an older adult certainly can request access to the records and should be allowed access to the records, but the social worker may need to screen and go over the records before they're released to the older adult, because there may be things in there that the older adult may not understand, may
Right.
have questions about, could have negative consequences if it's released.
Right.
I typically never release an entire record. I might release a summary of things discussed, so that I'm very careful to protect what's out there, to making sure that it's not causing harm to the family or to the older adult.
Right. Right. And I mean, this must happen where you're dealing with, say there's no one physically around the senior. Maybe it's virtual. I mean, do you deal with that too? Dealing with family members who are kind of helping their loved ones virtually or from a distance?
Right, from afar. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
I am aware of at least one case right now where neither of the biological children live in the state of Michigan with
Yeah.
their older adult parents. And so the good news is they are in an assisted living facility.
So they have help.
So they have help that way, and
Yeah.
then it's a matter of the children of these older adult parents being tapped in as they need to be.
Right.
Right, and
Okay.
that's spelled out, and all the more reason then in those situations for things to be documented in writing, included in the wills and trusts, etc.
Right. Which all comes beforehand. All this needs
Ideally,
to
yes,
be
and it should be reviewed maybe every 6 months, but for sure annually. These authentic conversations, it
right.
should be like built into just the family life, right?
Right. I mean, I'm going to plug our Gracefully Graying Listing Life Fully, which is our booklet, a 50-page booklet of where family members can put, everything from, who's your, say, financial advisor, who mows your lawn, who do you pay your bills to, what's the password to your phone, like all this stuff, a
Right.
place to record all of this so that
Love
it's
it.
all in one place. Everybody should know where it is. And that's like the first step in organizing your information and really getting things in place. And then, of course, the next step is, having an attorney fill out, complete your forms, make sure everything is all your ducks are in a row, so to speak.
Right. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree with you more, Lori.
Yeah. So tell us about your book. How do people get a hold of you? Ellen, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my book, I'm a co-author in a book called Women Who Empower. In this book, I write a chapter of my journey as a pediatric oncology mom. Like I said a little bit earlier, losing my husband to a brain tumor almost 6 years ago. And my goal through this book is to empower other people on their lifelong journey with loss and grief and navigating the cancer world for sure. And if people are interested in the book, they can get it on Amazon. It is available on Amazon. So that's great. And I have a cover book. So they just want to look up my name connected to the book, Women Who Empower, Ellen Craine. And then to get a hold of me, they can either email me at ellen@cranecounseling.com or they can call me at 248-539-3850. And I look forward to having lots of authentic conversations with people on this.
Yeah. I mean, you've got kind of a very unique training in that you're an attorney and you're a social worker and you're an author and a teacher. You've got a lot going on there.
I've got a lot going on. Oh, so let me just sort of clarify. I have a law degree, but I'm not an attorney. I kind of designate like an attorney is somebody who's licensed to practice law. That's not me. I do have the law degree, but I find that my niche and my passion and my love is more in this area of counseling and coaching people.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's great.
So, and associate producer now. Yay.
Yeah, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats and I love them all.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we will continue another live stream at another date talking about hired social workers. There's a lot to talk about. This is part 1. So we look forward to our viewers joining us the next time. And we thank you, everyone, for joining Gracefully Graying live stream, and visit our website, gracefullygraying.com, and find us on our social media platforms. And Ellen, we really thank you for joining us and bringing to light the ethics in social work and helping seniors.
And Lori, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.